Hello everyone, welcome to the session. Hello. Alright, welcome to Unacademy, India's largest online learning platform that provides a world of courses, resources, content, live and recorded sessions to help you in your preparation for the CA Foundation and Intermediate examinations. And also I'd like to welcome you to Crack CA Exams with us, which is a vertical and channel of Unacademy that caters to the students of CA Foundation and Intermediate in their journey and pursuit of preparation for the CA Foundation and Intermediate examinations by providing top quality educator, quality content and overall a great learning experience. So come, let's crack CA exams with Unacademy, India's largest online learning platform. Welcome to the session once again. Before we proceed, I'd like to introduce the speaker briefly. Hello, I'm Prathik Gupta. I am a Bachelor of Commerce from Christ College, Bangalore University. I am an associate member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, an associate member of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, an associate member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, and also a law graduate from Karnataka State Law University. I am currently a practicing chartered accountant and also a visiting faculty for CA subjects and an educator for CA students both offline and online. Prior to starting on my own, I worked with SR Bartley Boy and Associates, that is the Indian member firm of Ernst & Young Global in the Audit and Assurance Department. Then I went on to work with Ernst & Young India in the Mergers and Acquisitions Department. And finally, I went on to work with the Manipal Group in Bangalore as the corporate controller of their Indian entity as well as their German subsidiary located in Frankfurt, Germany. And it was only after I got back from Frankfurt, Germany that I decided to start something on my own. And that gave me an opportunity to become an educator, which in turn has given me this opportunity today to be able to take this session for you young, fine and bright CA aspirants. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and I hope you find the session useful. Anytime during the session, in case you have any questions, queries, observations, or discussions to be made, please do not hesitate to drop in a line, and I will be happy to take up the matter as soon as possible on the same for discussion or for problem-solving purposes. I'd also like to draw your attention to my name, which is Prathik, Prathik with an H, Gupta. Now, why I'm stressing on and insisting on my name is because a lot of people misspell my name. They don't include the H, because of which they are unable to find my sessions on YouTube as well as the Unacademy Learning App in the form of my special classes. So with this name, that is Prathik Gupta, Prathik Gupta, you can look me up on the YouTube channel of Unacademy as well as the Unacademy Learning App to find my hundreds of hours of sessions that will help you in your preparation for the CA Foundation and Intermediate examinations. Okay, now like I told you, the Unacademy caters to you in your preparation for the CA Foundation and Intermediate examinations through three platforms, that is YouTube, Special as well as the Plus platform. YouTube and Special classes are absolutely free of cost, but they provide you immense amount of value and resources to help you in your preparation for the CA Foundation and Intermediate examination. What you're watching right now is the YouTube session where you just need to go onto YouTube, type in Prathik Gupta, and you can see all my sessions that I've taken on YouTube channel of Unacademy so far. Special classes are again free of cost, but they provide you enormous amount of resources to help you in your preparation for the CA Foundation and Intermediate examinations, and they are they are available on an app known as the Unacademy Learning App, more about which I will tell you in the following slides. Let's talk about the Plus platform of Unacademy. The Plus platform of Unacademy is the premium platform of Unacademy that is a payment-based subscription model and which has various subscription packages for the various examinations, about which I will tell you further. In this slide, I will tell you why I recommend and encourage you to become part of the Plus platform of Unacademy as soon as possible. The first reason why I recommend and encourage you to become part of the Plus platform of Unacademy is because of the daily live classes it conducts, where you get to chat with your educator, engage in discussions, ask your doubts and answer polls, all this while the class is going on. The second reason why I recommend and encourage you to become part of the Plus platform of Unacademy is because of the live tests and quizzes it conducts on a regular and periodic basis, which help in evaluating your preparation, and also the regular mock tests and quizzes and get a detailed analysis of your performance. The third reason why I recommend and encourage you to become part of the Plus platform of Unacademy is because of the structured courses it provides, where all our courses are structured in line with your exam syllabus to help you best prepare for it. And lastly and most importantly, the reason I recommend and encourage you to become part of the Plus platform of Unacademy is because of the unlimited access it provides, where one subscription gets you access to all our live and recorded courses to watch from the comfort of your devices. So keeping all these advantages among many others in mind, I strongly recommend and encourage you to become part of the Plus platform of Unacademy as soon as possible in order to enhance and accelerate your preparation for the CA Foundation and Intermediate examinations. Okay, let's move on. Now in the previous slide you heard me say a lot about live and recorded sessions. So let me tell you that where are these live and recorded sessions available? They are available on an app known as the Unacademy Learning App. Now for those of you who have downloaded the Unacademy Learning App and are using it, I thank you very much and I request your support in the future as well. For those of you who have not yet downloaded the Unacademy Learning App, I request you to go to the Play Store on your mobile phones, download and install the Unacademy Learning App on your phones. Put in your mobile number where you will get an OTP, and using that OTP you can register on the Unacademy Learning App. It is as simple as this with no lengthy or complicated procedures. Now you might ask me, okay, I have downloaded, installed and registered on the Unacademy Learning App, so what's next? So let me tell you that the Unacademy Learning App gives you access to all the live and recorded special classes that Unacademy has to offer to you to help you in your preparation for the CA Foundation and the Intermediate examination. And not only this, it also gives you access to all the live and recorded plus courses that Unacademy has to offer to you in order to accelerate and enhance your preparation for the CA Foundation and Intermediate examinations. So keeping these points in mind, I request you to download and install the Unacademy Learning App on your phones. Put in your mobile numbers where you will get an OTP, and using that OTP, please register on the Unacademy Learning App so that you can make use of the world of resources that Unacademy has to offer to you to help you in your preparation for the CA Foundation and Intermediate examinations. And also, I request you to spread the word around to help the people around you get onto the Unacademy Learning App by downloading and installing the Unacademy Learning App on their phones, by helping them register on it using their mobile numbers and OTP, so that they too can make use of the world of resources that Unacademy has to offer to them. Like I told you, the Plus platform of Unacademy is the premium platform of Unacademy that is a payment-based subscription model and which also provides various subscription packages for the various examinations. So accordingly, the CA Foundation and Intermediate subscription packages provided by the Plus platform of Unacademy are as follows. The packages provided are for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months and 24 months. The 1 month package costs you about 3,500 rupees. The 3 months package costs you rupees 8,750. The 6 months package costs about 14,000 rupees. The 12 months package costs about 17,500. And the 24 months package costs 21,000 rupees. Now please remember, all these are the listed price of the packages. So before you make for the payment for the package of your choice, please do not forget to use the code Prathik to get an instant discount of 10% on the above listed price. I repeat, please do not forget to use the code Prathik, P-R-A-T-H-I-K, that's me, to get an immediate discount of 10% on the above listed price. So the after discount price of the various packages are as follows. The 1 month package will cost you rupees 3,150, the 3 month package will cost you rupees 7,875, the 6 months package will cost you rupees 12,600, the 12 months package will cost you rupees 15,750, and the 24 months package will cost you rupees 18,900. So you see, immediately you get a savings or discount of 10% when you use my code. Now I personally recommend you to start off with the 12 months and 24 months packages for 2 reasons. Firstly, it is cost effective. If you compare the 1 month package cost with the per month cost of the 12 months and 24 months packages, you will see that you're getting great cost savings almost immediately. And secondly, and most importantly, since the CA Foundation and Intermediate courses are provided to you in one package, that is 12 months or 24 months, a 12 month or 24 month package will be highly beneficial to you because it covers the duration of both your courses, that is CA Foundation and CA Intermediate, which normally take about minimum of 12 months for you to prepare and clear. So if you're getting a package that is 12 months or 24 months, that covers the duration of both your courses, that is CA Foundation and Intermediate, at a very cost-effective price, I think that is a very good deal. But having said this, you're free to choose the package of your choice. But before you make the payment, please do not forget to use the code Prathik to get an instant discount of 10% on the above listed price. You can also make use of the low-cost EMI options available for the 6 months, 12 months and 24 months packages just in case you do not want to make the entire payment at one shot. Also, the payment options available are internet banking, debit card, credit card, and also all the coins that you've accumulated by watching the special classes can be redeemed while making the payment for the Plus course. So keeping all these packages, these discounts and these advantages that I told you in a couple of slides earlier in mind, I strongly recommend and encourage you to become part of the Plus platform of Unacademy as soon as possible in order to enhance and accelerate your preparation for the CA Foundation and Intermediate examinations. Alright? Like I told you, the Unacademy Learning App gives you access to all the live and recorded special classes. Here are the snapshots of few of the many special classes that I have conducted on the Unacademy Learning App, which is there for your benefit, exclusive benefit, so that you can make use of them. Okay, and after making use of them, if in case you have any questions or queries, you can always come back to me. There are special classes on Revision Test Paper, Sale of Goods Act, the Indian Contracts Act, the Companies Act, the Fundamentals of Accounting, Retirement of Partner, Admission of Partner, Death of Partner, Valuation of Inventories, Revision of Final Accounts of entities, revision on sale of goods on approval or return basis, and many more. So I request you to log into the Unacademy Learning App, go to my profile, Prathik Gupta, and you will find the hundreds of hours of special classes there exclusively for the benefit of CA Foundation and intermediate students. Alright? And also here are the links to few of the many special classes that I have conducted on the Unacademy Learning App. You can either click on these links or copy and paste these links on your browser to take you directly to the special class on the Unacademy Learning App. There are special classes on the Indian Contracts Act, the Sale of Goods Act, the Indian Partnership Act, the Limited Liability Partnership Act, the Companies Act, the Basics of Communication, Accounting Concepts, and Revision Test Papers, among many more. So like I told you earlier, log into the Unacademy Learning App, go to my profile, Prathik Gupta, and you will see the hundreds of hours of sessions there. And also you can log into the YouTube channel of Unacademy to find my hundreds of hours of sessions on the YouTube channel of Unacademy, which will help you in your preparation for the CA Foundation and intermediate examinations. Alright, so let's start off with today's session. It's about audit documentation and this thing. So before we can delve into the topic of audit documentation, let's talk a little about audit planning as to what audit planning is, and then we slowly move on towards audit documentation. So audit planning, planning and audit involves establishing the overall audit strategy and developing the audit plan. So before you can conduct the audit, you need to establish the overall audit strategy as to how are you going to go about doing the audit, and then develop the audit plan. So the establishing the overall audit strategy also involves a little bit of knowledge about the client, that how the client has been in the past, how have the operations been of the client, and how the audit reports of the client in the past has been. If the client's audit reports have been very qualified or not clean, in that case you're going to have a tough time. You can imagine that you're going to have a tough time with that client in the future as well. So accordingly you develop your overall audit strategy, because if it's a tough client, if the client is not willing to share information, then that simply means that the client is trying to hide something. Okay, so based on that, you will decide whether you want to do more checking of actual transactions or you want to check the internal controls and accounting systems of the client. Then you will develop, according to that, you will develop an audit plan. So we will go into that in detail. Audit plan to conduct an effective audit. The auditor should plan his work to enable him to conduct an effective audit in an efficient and timely manner. Plans should be based on knowledge of the client's business. Okay, so basically the auditor should have knowledge about the client's business. He should have discussion with the clients, and based on that, he will develop an audit plan. Plans should be made to cover, among other things, acquiring knowledge of the client's accounting systems, policies, and internal control procedures. Like we saw yesterday, as part of the audit, one important step is to assess and evaluate the accounting systems, policies, and internal control procedures, because based on the evaluation of the accounting system, policies, and internal controls, only the other steps in the audit can be planned. Okay, and then establishing the expected degree of reliance to be placed on internal controls. So if the client has good high-level internal controls, then you can rely on them. And your substantive checking simply means the checking of the actual transactions, like you call vouching, that can be reduced. But if the internal controls are not effective or not in place, then your substantive checking will go up and increase. Okay, please take about a minute or two, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Any questions, please ask me. Please take a minute more. Are we done? Okay. Then determining and programming the nature, timing, and extent of the audit procedures to be performed, coordinating the work to be performed. So basically, first and foremost, you will check the accounting system internal controls. Then you will check establishing the degree of reliance to be placed on the internal controls. Then determining the programming the nature, timing, and extent of the audit procedures to be performed based on your assessment of the internal controls and the accounting systems, and then finally coordinating the work to be performed. So your plan will basically involve these. All right. Then plans should be further developed and revised as necessary during the course of the audit. So please remember, the plans cannot be absolutely rigid, that this is the plan that will be followed irrespective of what happens. The plans keep changing as the audit goes on. Okay, it needs to be flexible. Then benefits of planning in the audit of financial statements. Planning an audit involves establishing the overall audit strategy for the engagement and developing an audit plan. Adequate planning benefits the audit of financial statements in several ways, including the following. What are the following? How does the planning the audit help us? It helps us in the following ways. First, helping the auditor to devote appropriate attention to the important areas of audit. So, as part of the audit plan itself, the auditor will identify the important areas where he has to focus more. So, audit planning helps the auditor to devote appropriate attention to the important areas of the audit, helping the auditor identify and resolve potential problems on a timely basis. So, because he has planned his audit, obviously you kind of have an idea about what are the problems you could face, potential problems you could face, so that they can be addressed on a timely basis. Helping the auditor properly organize and manage the audit engagement so that it is performed in an efficient and effective manner. Alright, now because there is a plan, it will avoid the audit being absolutely haphazard and things like that, and it will help him properly organize and manage the audit engagement so that it is performed in an effective manner. He can delegate the work or separate the work and give it to his various team members. He can give them timelines by which he wants the audit to be completed, and also he may have answers to already the potential problems he could face on a timely basis. Okay. Then assisting in selection of engagement team members with appropriate levels of capabilities and competence to respond to anticipated risks and the proper assignment of work to them. So also the auditor, based on the level of complexity when in the planning process, he can select his team and delegate work to them accordingly. Facilitating the direction and supervision of the engagement team members and the review of their work. So after the plan is done, when everyone is working as per the plan, including the team members and everyone, the auditor can facilitate the direction and supervision of the engagement team members and the review of their work. Okay? Please take about 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask me. Take about 2 minutes. Any questions, please ask. Take about 2 more minutes. Any questions, please ask. Please take a minute more. Any questions, please ask me. Carefully go through this. Any questions, please ask. Okay, shall we proceed? Okay, audit strategy. Now we saw the audit planning. What is the advantages of audit planning? Now let's look at what do you mean by audit strategy. Overall audit strategy is assistance to the auditor and how it assists the auditor. Overall audit strategy sets the scope, timing, and direction of the audit. Okay, and guides the development of the more detailed audit plan. The auditor shall establish an overall audit strategy that sets the scope, timing, and direction of the audit, and that guides the development of the audit plan. So basically, like I told you in the beginning, when the auditor based on his experience with the client in the past, or based about news about the client and his history, he develops an overall audit strategy, whether he's going to go all out and check a lot, or he's going to check the internal controls and rely on them. And based on that, he's going to plan his audit. Okay, so if the internal controls and everything of the client is working and everything, then his substantive checking, as they call it, the vouching, will be lesser. But if the internal controls are more better or are not functioning, then the vouching will be more. The auditor shall establish an overall audit strategy that sets the scope, timing, and direction of the audit. Just one second, give me a second. Okay, I'm sorry, I just got an urgent call. Yeah. All right. So, where were we? Okay. So, are we done with this? Okay. So then, the process of establishing overall audit strategy assists the auditor to determine the subject to the completion of the auditor's risk assessment procedures. Such matters such as the resources to deploy for specific audit areas, such as the use of appropriately experienced team members for high risk areas, or the involvement of experts in complex matters. Okay, so based on his overall audit strategy, if the client is a tough client to handle, then he will probably deploy his more experienced and more senior members. But if the client is easy and he very cooperative and everything, then a slightly inexperienced team can also go in. The amount of resources to allocate to specific audit areas, such as number of team members assigned to observe the inventory count at material locations, the extent of review of other auditors' work in the case of group audits, or the audit budget in hours to allocate high risk areas. So that's what our overall audit strategy helps the auditor in planning this resources better. Please take 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Take about 2 minutes. Any questions, please ask. Let me know once you're done, please. Take about 2 more minutes. Any questions, please ask me. Are we done? Take about a minute more. Are we done? Let me know once you're done, please. Okay, then when these resources are to be deployed, such as whether an interim audit stage or at key cutoff dates, so basically the audit strategy helps you in determining the number of resources that you want and whatever, and then also when do you deploy it, whether it's an interim audit means before the year end, or whether it is at the end of the year. How such resources are managed? Directed and supervised, such as when team briefing and debriefing meetings are expected to be held, how engagement partner and manager reviews are to be expected to take place, for example, on-site or off-site, and whether to complete engagement quality control reviews. So all these things will form part of the audit strategies. Let's have a look at an illustration. The auditor T of Handfab Limited is worried as to management of key resources to be employed to conduct the audit. Required how the audit strategy would be helpful to the auditor. So that's the question. Let's have a look. Solution. Overall audit strategy sets the scope, timing and direction of the audit and guides the development of the more detailed audit plan. So first we have the audit strategy, and based on the audit strategy the audit plan is developed, and that guides the development of the audit plan. Okay, please take about a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask me. Take about a minute more. Any questions, please ask. Take about a minute more. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask me. Carefully go through this. It's an important topic. Are we done? Okay. Establishment of overall audit strategy. In establishing the overall audit strategy, the auditor shall identify the characteristics of the engagement that defines its scope. So, like I told you, based on the past experience and what was his experience with the audit, whether he overshot the time or whether the audit was concluded within time, whether enough team members were there or not there. So all these things, it helps him in identifying. So in establishing the overall audit strategy, the auditor shall identify the characteristics of the engagement that defines its scope Example, the expected audit coverage, including the number and location of components to be included, the nature of the business segment to be audited, including the need for specialized knowledge, and the expected use of audit evidence obtained in previous audits. For example, audit evidence related to risk assessment procedures and test of control. So basically, if we had conducted the checking of the accounting systems and internal control procedures of the previous year, all those evidences he will use this year also and base his audit strategy. So if last year was a tough audit, his audit strategies will be based on that, and it will be modified accordingly this year as well. Okay, please take 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions, please ask. Any questions, please ask. Let me know once you're done, please. Take another minute. Take about a minute more. Any questions, please ask me. Are we done? Okay, let's proceed. B. To ascertain the reporting objectives of the engagement, to plan the timing of the audit and the nature of the communications required. So this is also a part of the audit strategy. Why do we make an audit strategy? To ascertain the reporting objectives of the engagement, to plan the timing of the audit and the nature of the communications required. So example, the entity's timetable for reporting such as interim and final stages, the organization of meetings with the management and those charged with governance to discuss the nature, timing and extent of the audit work, the discussion with management and those charged with governance regarding the expected type and timing of reports to be issued, and other communications, both oral and written, including the auditor's report, management letters and communications to those charged with governance, and the discussion with management regarding the expected communications on the status of audit work throughout the engagement. So basically, based on the discussions as to when the deliverables are to be given, when the management plans to issue the report or use the report in their meetings and other things, that will also depend on the audit strategy. If there is a lot of time, then the audit strategy can be more extensive and more in-depth. But if there is lesser time, then the audit strategy has to be modified in order to cover large areas of work in a shorter period of time. So all this will be in accordance with discussions with the management regarding the expected communications on the status of work audit throughout the engagement. Alright? Yeah. Then, consider the factors. And the third reason about audit strategies is consider the factors that in the auditor's professional judgment all are significant in directing the audit team's efforts. So again, obviously, this is a judgmental call. So based on the auditor's judgment, whatever he thinks is significant in directing the engagement team's effort, the audit strategy will be directed in that side. Okay? So please take about a minute or two, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Hi Neha, how are you? Good evening. How are you doing? Okay, any questions, please ask me. Please take a minute or two, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Alright, take a minute more, please go through this carefully. Any questions, please ask me. Let me know once you're done, please. Just give me a second. Just give me a second. Hello. Hello. Yeah. Okay. Sir, largely ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇದು ಸಾಯಿ ಕುಮಾರ್. नहीं ಯಾವಿಂದ ಸರ್ ಇದು ಪೂರ್ಣ ಅಗ್ರಹಾರ ಮತ್ತು ಅಮೆರಾನ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಕಸ್ಟಮರ್ ಕೇರ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ? ಅದು ಅಮೆರಾನ್ ಕಸ್ಟಮರ್ ಕೇರ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಟರ್. ಸರ್ ಇದು ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಾನಿಕ್ ಸಿಟಿ ಫೇಸ್ 1 ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಟೀಮ್ ಸನ್ರೈಸ್ ಪಾರ್ಕ್. ಸರಿ ಸರ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಗಂಟೆಗೆ ಬರ್ತೀರಾ? ಇವತ್ತು ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ? ಇದು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕಂಪನಿ ಯಾವುದು ಸರ್? ಓನರ್ ಯಾರು? ಓನರ್ ಯಾರು? ಹಾಂ ಸರ್ ನಾಳೆ ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ಬರ್ತೀರಾ ಸರ್? ಹಾಂ हेलो नमस्ते सर कौन बोल रहा है? प्रिंस कहाँ से सर? सर आपको मेरा नंबर कैसे मिला सर? अच्छा सचिन अच्छा अच्छा सर आज आज और कल तो नहीं होगा मैं आपको आज फोन करता हूँ अभी मैं थोड़ी मीटिंग में हूँ आपको फोन करता हूँ okay apologies getting some important calls apologies are we done? Okay, then D. Consider the results of preliminary engagement activities and, where applicable, whether knowledge gained on other engagement performed by the engagement partner of the entity is relevant. Example, preliminary identification of areas where there may be risk of material misstatement based on past data and current assessment, results of previous audits that involved evaluating the operating effectiveness of internal controls, volume of transactions, which may determine whether it is more efficient for the auditor to rely on internal control. So based on these experiences, the auditor can frame his audit strategy and in turn can make his audit plans. Alright, please take a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask. Take about a minute or two. Any questions, please ask me. Let me know once you're done, please. Okay, ascertain the nature, timing and extent of resources necessary to perform the engagement. Again, How does an audit strategy work? It works to ascertain the nature, timing, and extent of resources. Resources means people necessary to perform the engagement. Example: the selection of engagement team and the assignment of audit work to the team members, including the assignment of appropriately experienced team members to areas where there may be higher risks of material misstatement. Yeah, yeah. Engagement budgeting, including considering the appropriate amount of time to set aside for areas where there may be higher risks of material statements. Okay, so based again, when you've done your strategy, you've done your planning, it helps you identify areas where there may be higher risk of material misstatements. So it helps you to deploy more resources in those areas where there could be more risks of material misstatements. Okay, please take a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Take about 30 seconds more, then let's proceed. Any questions, please ask. Okay, now let's look at the relationship between overall audit strategy and audit plan. So we've discussed so far the audit strategy. Now let's look at the relationship between overall audit strategy and audit plan. Once the overall audit strategy has been established, an audit plan can be developed to address the various matters identified in the overall audit strategy. So the first step is to develop the audit strategy, then based on that you make the specific audit plan, taking into account the need to achieve the various audit objectives through the efficient use of the auditor's resources. The establishment of the overall audit strategy and the detailed audit plan are not necessarily discrete or sequential processes but are closely interrelated, since changes in one may result in consequential changes in the other. So basically what we notice here is the audit strategy and the audit plan are interconnected and they're very closely connected, and a change in any of these will result in the change of the other also. That means a change in the audit strategy will result in the change in the audit plan, and a change in the audit plan will result in change in the audit strategies. Alright? Take 30 seconds, go through this. Any questions, please ask. Let me know once you're done, please. Are we done? Development of an audit plan. So far, like I told you, we discussed the audit strategy. Now let's look at the development of an audit plan. Description of audit plan. The auditor shall develop an audit plan that shall include a description of, okay, so what does the plan include? The nature, timing and extent of planned risk assessment procedures as determined under SA 315, identifying and assessing the risks of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment. Okay, so basically first the auditor carries on risk assessment procedures as per SA Standards of Auditing 315, that is identifying and assessing the risks of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment. Okay, the nature, then second one, the nature, timing and extent of planned further audit procedures at the assertion level as determined under SA 330, the auditor's response to assess risk. So the first step was he assesses and evaluates the various risks. The second step is the plan will contain the auditor's response to those risks. If the risks are very high, then his procedures will also be more in depth and more detailed and more thorough. But if the risks are low, then the auditor can rely on those controls and accounting systems, and then he can appropriately select his audit procedures, which might not be so rigorous as in the case when the risks are high. Other planned audit procedures that are required to be carried out so that the engagement complies with the standards of auditing. Okay, so now like I told you, let's take for example cash expenses, cash payments. When the auditor does the risk assessment with cash payments, he finds the risk very high. So in that case, what is the auditor going to do in his plan? He is going to pick a large number of cash payments and expenses and do the vouching of each of them to see that the cash expenses have actually been incurred and they have been properly approved and all that. But if he finds that the thing is okay, the cash expenses, the controls on cash expenses are good, then he might just samply check a few of them and then depend on the internal controls. And then other planned audit procedures that are required to be carried out so that the engagement complies with SAS. Okay, that is standards of auditing. Please take about 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions? Please ask. Any questions? Please ask me. Take about 2 minutes. Any questions? Please ask me. Let me know once you're done, please. Come on, let me know once you're done. Any questions? Please ask me. Take about 10 seconds more. Are we done? Okay, the audit plan is more detailed than the overall audit strategy that includes the nature, timing and extent of audit procedures to be performed by engagement team members. Planning for these audit procedures takes place over the course of the audit as the audit plan for the engagement develops. Example, planning of the auditor's risk assessment procedures occurs early in the audit process. However, planning the nature, timing and extent of specific further audit procedures depends on the outcome of those risk assessment procedures. So first is the risk assessment procedures and then the audit procedures and timings of them depends on them. In addition, the auditor may begin the execution of further audit procedures for some classes of transactions. account balances and disclosures before planning or remaining further audit procedures. So please remember, like I told you, it cannot be a watertight compartment, and your audit procedures and planning cannot be fixed. It has to be flexible enough to be changed as the audit goes on. So first is your audit strategy planning. Based on the overall audit strategies, you will make your plans, and then you will also decide which accounts or which balances you will go with a substantive or thorough checking, and which you will rely on the controls and other things. Alright, so please take about a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Any questions, please ask me. Please take about a minute more. Any questions, please ask me. Come on, let me know once you're done. Take about a minute more. Any questions? Anyone? Okay, let's proceed. Now, the knowledge of the client's business. It is one of the. Now, how do you get the relevant information for your audit planning? Knowledge of the client's business. It is one of the important principles in developing an overall audit plan. In fact, without adequate knowledge of client's business, a proper audit is not possible. As per SA 315, identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment, the auditor shall obtain understanding of the following. So basically, you need to understand the industry or the business of the client. Without that, you cannot plan your audit. So what are the sources through which you get to know about the business of the client? You get to know it through its memorandum, articles, or its other documents, its previous year audit reports, financial statements, internal documents, internal meeting memos, whatever documents they have, and other things. So the auditor shall obtain an understanding of the following. So what are the things? Relevant industry, regulatory, and other external affairs factors, including the applicable financial reporting framework. So whichever industry the client belongs to, the auditor needs to have an understanding of that relevant industry. Whether it's the IT industry, automobile industry, textile industry, or furniture industry, or whatever manufacturing industry, the auditor needs to first see which industry the client belongs to. Example, the competitive environment, including demand, capacity, product, and price competition, as well as cyclical or seasonal activity. Then supplier and customer relationships, such as types of suppliers and customers, example, related parties, unified buying groups, and the related contracts with those entities, technological developments such as those related to the entity's products, energy supply and cost, the effect of regulation on entity operations. So these are all a few of the sources through which all the external factors that are applicable to the company, to the client, which the auditor needs to familiarize himself with before making an audit plan. Okay, so that covers under knowledge of the client's business. Please take a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Take a minute more. Any questions, please ask me. Carefully go through this. Take a minute more. Any questions, please ask me. Let me know what's your run, please. Take about a minute more. Any questions, please ask me. All right, any questions? Okay, then the nature of the entity. The first one is the knowledge of the industry, relevant industry, regulatory, and other factors. Then, how does the auditor gain information about the client? Next one is the nature of the entity, including its operations, as to what is the business it operates into, its ownership and governance structure. What is the ownership it has? Who are the promoters? Who are the owners of the company? The types of investments that the entity is making and plans to make, whether it plans to expand its business or whether it plans to make any other kind of investments, take over companies, including investments in special purpose entities, and the way the entity is structured and how it is financed. What is the mode of finance, or how has the entity raised its finance from the various sources, to enable the auditor to understand the classes of transactions, account balances, and disclosures to be expected in the financial statements. For example, understanding the source of an entity's earnings can help us identify risks of material misstatement related to valuation of certain products or lines of business or areas that may be more susceptible to management fraud. So, for example, if the entity has many sources of income and one of the sources of income is based on cash transactions, then that area could have risks of material misstatement which will require extra attention of the auditor. Okay, and while planning his audit. So, lines of business or areas that may be more susceptible to management fraud. Understanding key supplier and customer relationships can help us identifying potential related parties or risks related to revenue recognition. Okay, so then while we go a step further, we see who are the various customers and suppliers of the company, which can help us to identify potential related party, AS18, or links related to revenue recognition. That is, how does the company recognize revenue as per AS9? Okay, so these are a few of the other ways, the nature of the entity including, which gives us information about the entity's business. Please take a minute, go through this. Any questions? Please ask me. Any questions? Please ask. Any questions? Please take about 30 seconds more. Any questions? Please ask me. Okay, then continuing with that, an entity with components in multiple tax jurisdictions resulting in additional risk of misstatement in tax accounts. So, the next thing about the entity you need to know if the entity has operations or multinational operations in which it has branches or offices in another country, which is a separate tax jurisdiction, then the auditor will also have to pay attention whether there is any additional risk of misstatement in the tax accounts. That means whether the company has made any arrangements with its branches in other countries in such a way that it tries to avoid taxes in that country or in our country. An acquisition may result in a complex structure of holding companies to achieve benefits to the shareholders, giving rise to significant intercompany transactions, which may give rise to material misstatements due to fraud and error. So now, whenever the company is planning to make an acquisition or had made an acquisition in the complex structure of holding companies to achieve the benefits to the shareholders, giving rise to significant intercompany transactions, which may give rise to material misstatements due to fraud or error. Okay, transaction outside the entity's normal course of business may include complex or equity transactions regarding the leasing of premises or the rendering of management services by the entity to another party when no consideration is exchanged. Transactions under contracts with terms that change before the expiration should be studied in depth. So these complex transactions should also be studied in depth by the auditor. Then C, how do we get knowledge about the business? The entity's selection and application of accounting policies, including the reasons for changes thereto. So we need to see over the years what are the accounting policies the company has applied, including the reasons for changing these accounting policies over the years. The auditor shall evaluate whether the entity's accounting policies are appropriate for its business and consistent with applicable financial reporting framework and the accounting policies used in the relevant industry. So the auditor also needs to satisfy himself that the entity is using and applying proper accounting policies in terms, like for example, in terms of depreciation on its fixed assets, including if there are any changes in the accounting policies over the years again and again. The auditor must inquire as to why these changes have happened, and the auditor shall evaluate whether the entity's accounting policies are appropriate. So looking at the size and the operations of the business, the auditor should also evaluate whether the accounting policies used by the entity are appropriate for its business and consistent with the applicable financial reporting framework and accounting policies used in the relevant industry. Alright, please take about 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Please take 2 minutes. Any questions, please ask me. Go through this carefully. Come on, go through this carefully. Any questions you may have, please ask me. Take your time, no hurry, go through it carefully. Any questions, please ask. Any questions? Let me know once you're done, please. Are we done? Let me know once you're done, please. Take about 30 seconds more. Are we done? Okay, so if you are done, as we've taken class for about 1 hour continuously, let's take a break for about 10 minutes. Go freshen up, go have some water, go for a walk, and this thing. So let's continue at about 7:48 p.m. In exactly 10 minutes, let's assemble back and continue. All right, take a break. Take a break. Let's assemble back at 7:48. 9 minutes from now. Okay? Take a break. All right, another 7 minutes more. Come back from the break. Okay. Hmm. Come on, 5 more minutes. Come back. All right, another 3 more minutes for the break. Please come back. No, 4 more minutes. Come on. Take a break and then we continue. Come on. Okay, about 2 or 3 minutes more. Get ready to come back from your break. Then we will resume. Hmm. Okay, come back. 2 more minutes left. Start coming back. Okay, another minute remaining. Come back, everyone. Let's resume. Hmm. Okay, 10 more seconds. Then let's continue. Come back from the break. All right, let's continue. Now let's look at an example. We are talking about audit planning. We use our understanding of the entity's accounting principles, financial reporting policies, or disclosures to help us determine the need to involve a specialist to help perform audit procedures relating to particular disclosures, such as pension disclosures. So when we make our audit planning, we also look at each of these items in the entity's accounts, which helps us to assess whether we require the help of a specialist to perform certain audit procedures with related to particular disclosures, such as pension and AS15 disclosures. Okay, AS15 is employee benefits. Then the effect on our audit of significant new or revised disclosures that may be required as a result of changes in the entity's environment, financial condition or activities, such as a change in the segments for the reporting of segment information arising from a significant business combination. Alright, so now again, we all see, like I told you, the audit plan and audit strategy needs to be flexible, and it should be something that can accommodate various changes that are suggested by the audit program as it goes on. So from time to time, we need to keep changing it accordingly. Then management determines that most of the entity's competitors have adopted an accounting policy that is different from that adopted by the entity. After evaluation, management determines that the alternative accounting policy is generally accepted, and further determines that the alternative accounting policy is preferable, as it will result in greater compatibility and result in reliable and more relevant information. Management therefore decides to change the entity's accounting policy. So here again we see, based on audit planning, based on how the competitors of the management have used the accounting policy, which the company is doing, the auditors make the management change the accounting policy, and then the relevant disclosure is given in the financial statements. Alright, please take 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions, please ask. Please take 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Come on, quickly go through this. Take about a minute more. Please remember, we are talking about the audit strategy and audit plan. All right. Okay. Now, next one is the entity's objectives and strategies, and those related business risks that may result in risks of material misstatement. Through that, also we can get an understanding about the client's business. Example: if one of the management's objectives is to grow the business, management may develop a strategy to steady but regular growth through specific marketing campaigns and development of new markets. Alternatively, management may develop a more aggressive, complex strategy for acquiring competitors. Each of these strategies gives rise to differing business risks and potentially differing risks of material misstatement. Second example of potential business risks include A. Failure to keep up to date with new products, that is technological obsolescence, technology or services. Excessive reliance on key supplier, product or individual such as the owner. So if there is more than necessary dependence on one particular supplier, product or individual, then that is also a business risk. Then third one is lack of personnel with expertise to react to changes in the industry. Non-skilled workforce, insufficient or excessive production capacity caused by inaccurate estimation of demand, loss of financing due to entities' inability to meet financial covenants. So these are also examples of potential business risks that an entity goes through. Okay, please take 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Okay, any questions? Please ask me. Take about a minute more, carefully go through this. Right, any questions you have? Then, the measurement and review of the entity's financial performance. Through this also you can gain information about the client's business. Example, external information such as analyst reports and credit rating agency reports may be useful information for us to obtain an understanding of the entity's performance measures. Such reports often can be obtained from the entity. In addition to the importance of knowledge of the client's business and establishing the overall audit plan, Such knowledge helps the auditor to identify areas of special audit consideration, to evaluate the reasonableness of both the accounting estimates and the management representations, to make judgments regarding the appropriateness of the accounting policies and disclosures. So basically, the past performance, financial performance of the company also gives information to the auditor, valuable information to the auditor to perform his procedures. All right. Yeah. Please take a minute, go through this. Let me know when you're done, please. Any questions, please ask. Are we done? Okay. Audit planning is a continuous process. Okay, so now the next topic that we're going to talk about is audit planning, a continuous process. In the context of recurring audits, as per SA 300, planning and audit of financial statements, planning is not a discrete phase of an audit, but rather a continuous and iterative process that often begins shortly after or in connection with completion of the previous audit and continues until the completion of the current audit engagement. So like we discussed earlier, now audit planning is not just a discrete or a distinct function. Now please remember, it is a continuous function, an iteration function. Iteration means changes keep happening on that based on the progress of the audit. So an audit planning starts right from the end of the previous audit and continues till the completion of the current audit. Then immediately after the completion of the current audit, the audit planning for the next period starts off. Planning, however, includes consideration of the timing of certain activities and audit procedures that need to be completed prior to the performance of further audit procedures. For example, planning includes the need to consider prior to the auditor's identification and assessment of the risks of material misstatements, such matters as, okay, now there are various timings of the various audit procedures also that need to be determined. So, for example, planning includes the need to consider prior to the auditor's identification and assessment of the risks of material statements, such matters as the analytical procedures to be applied as risk assessment procedures. Okay, so what are the various analytical procedures that you need to do for the risk assessment procedures? That is the internal control, the audit risk, business risk, and accounting systems risk, and everything. We need to assess that, right? So what are the procedures that you need to carry out these assessments? Obtaining a general understanding of the legal and regulatory framework applicable to the entity and how the entity is complying with the framework. So let's say it is an NBFC, non-banking financial company. So then it is under the legal framework of maybe of the Companies Act, the RBI guidelines, okay, and the central government guidelines. So we need to see how the company is coping with the various legal and regulatory framework that is applicable to that company, and then we need to plan accordingly. Third, the determination of materiality. What is the materiality? That means what amount below which it is immaterial, that we can afford a little bit of risk, and above what amount it is material and we have to address that risk. The involvement of experts, whether there is any item or amount in the client's financials which involves the involvement of experts. Normally AS 15, employee benefits, will involve the employment of experts like valuation experts. The performance of other risk assessment procedures. Okay, so these are the various procedures that need to be included while planning an audit. Okay, please take a minute or two, go through this. Any questions, please ask. Any questions? Please ask. Take a minute more. Carefully go through this. Any questions? Please ask me. Any questions? Any questions? Please ask me. Okay. Then audit additional considerations in initial audit engagement. That means the first time when you're doing the audit engagement. As per SA 300, planning and audit of financial statements, the auditor shall undertake the following activities prior to starting an initial audit. Performing procedures required by SA 220 regarding the acceptance of the client relationship and specific audit engagement. So whenever you're doing the audit for the first time, as per SA 220, the auditor does the work of the acceptance of the client relationship and specific audit engagement. He signs an engagement letter, tells the client about his various roles and responsibilities and his scope, and also explains to the client what is his roles and responsibilities and scope, and then the specific audit engagement, and then communicating with the predecessor auditor where there has been a change of auditors in the compliance with regular. So whenever there is a change in the auditor, and a new auditor is appointed, the new auditor is supposed to communicate with the old auditor and ask him if there are any reasons why he should not be accepting the audit assignment and whether there are any financial dues to him from the company. So whenever a new auditor accepts an assignment, he is expected to carry out these two activities. One is to get an engagement letter outlining the scope, roles and responsibilities of the auditor, as well as communicating with the predecessor auditor whether there has been a change of auditors in the compliance with relevant ethical requirements. That is an ethical requirement. Okay, please take about a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask. Let me know once you're done, please. Okay, let's proceed. Now, overall audit strategy and the audit plan, the auditor's responsibility. So now, while framing the overall audit strategy and the overall audit plan, what is the auditor's responsibility? Let's have a look. The auditor may decide to discuss elements of planning with the entity's management to facilitate the conduct and management of the audit. So as part of the audit strategy, when the auditor makes a plan that particular, let's say the revenue recognition of the client is a very important and sensitive areas, and he might do a very thorough checking of the same, then at times the auditor might discuss the same matter with the client and tell him that your sales or your receivables or your revenue is a complex item, so I'm going to do a thorough checking of it and I require your cooperation while doing so. The client may agree or the client may disagree, but then the auditor has already communicated to him, and the auditor will also communicate to him the minimum requirements that he wants in terms of audit of revenue or any other specific item. For example, to coordinate some of the planned audit procedures with the work of the entity's personnel. So basically, the auditor might also tell the client that I require your people to please work a little extra and give me the proper information. Although these discussions often occur, the overall audit strategy and the audit plan remain the auditor's responsibility. When discussing matters included in the overall audit strategy or audit plan, care is taken required in order not to compromise the effectiveness of the audit. So even though he might communicate with the client, but the responsibility of the overall audit strategy and the overall audit plan is still with the auditor, and the auditor should keep in mind that he does not compromise the effectiveness of the audit. It has to be a thorough independent audit. Example, discussing the nature and timing of detailed audit procedures with management may compromise the effectiveness of the audit by making the audit procedures too predictable. So whenever the client discusses the nature and timing of the detailed audit procedures with the management already, that may compromise the effectiveness of the audit by making the audit procedures too predictable. So basically, the client and all his people already know about what is expected and what is going to come. So that may compromise the audit. So the auditor has to keep in mind these effects and include these in these audit planning and strategy. Please take 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Any questions? Let me know once you're done, please. Any questions, please ask. Any questions? Any questions, please ask me. Okay, the involvement of the engagement partner and other key members of the engagement team in planning the audit draws on their experience and insight, thereby enhancing the effectiveness and efficiency of the audit of the planning process. Illustration 2, when the auditor, the auditor of SKM Limited asks a finance and audit team head to prepare audit strategy for conducting audit of SKM Limited, W also insists him to draw detailed audit procedures. On request of the auditor W, complete audit strategy as well as audit procedures are prepared by the finance audit head of the company. Subsequently, the auditor realizes the effectiveness of the audit is compromised and it was his responsibility to prepare the overall audit strategy. So we need to comment on this. So, comment, solution. Refer paragraph 6, overall audit strategy and audit plan, the auditor's responsibility. Keeping in view the content given in paragraph 6, approach of W was wrong and he should have prepared the overall audit strategy and detailed audit procedures. Basically, the audit preparation of the audit strategy and the audit plan is the responsibility of the auditor and not the client. So it is not acceptable as it is compromising the effectiveness of the audit. Okay, please take a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask. Any questions, please ask me. Okay, now changes to planning decisions during the course of the audit. Like we discussed in the beginning, the audit plan should be lucid. That means it should enable changes and should not be a very rigid one. Okay, the auditor shall update and change the overall audit strategy and the audit plan as necessary during the course of the audit. So as the audit goes on, based on the progress, he will change the audit strategy and the audit plan. As a result of unexpected events, changes in conditions, or the audit evidence obtained from the results of audit procedures, the auditor may need to modify the overall audit strategies and audit plan and thereby the resulting plan's nature, timing and extent of further audit procedures based on the revised consideration of assessed risks. This may be the case when information comes to the auditor's attention that differs significantly from the information available when the auditor planned the audit procedures. For example, audit evidence obtained through the performance of substantive procedures may contradict the audit evidence obtained through test of controls. Now, what does this mean? Like we discussed in the beginning, that the audit planning and strategy is a very flexible thing. It cannot be rigid. So, during the course of the audit, if the auditor comes across many situations where he needs to change the audit strategy and the audit plan, he will be required to do so. Now, one of the reasons why he may be required to do so is because the information that he obtained from the client at the time of planning his audit might actually be different from the information that he got while executing the audit. So there is a difference between both these informations, and because of this, the auditor might have to change the plan and strategy of his audit. That means substantive procedures or control checking. He might move it up and down. Okay, that's what this means. Take a minute, go through this. Any question, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Any questions, please ask me. Carefully go through this. Okay, direction, supervision and review. The auditor shall plan the nature, timing and extent of the direction and supervision of his engagement team members and review of their work. So whoever is the audit in charge will have to plan the nature, timing and extent of direction, review and supervision of the engagement team members and review of their work. The nature, timing and extent of the direction and supervision of engagement team members and the review of their work vary depending on many factors, including the size and complexity of the entity, the area of the audit and the assessed risk of material misstatement. So while supervising and directing and reviewing the work of his engagement team members, the auditor should keep in mind the size and complexity of the entity. If the entity is big and it's complex, then he will have to do it more carefully. The work of direction and supervision of the engagement team, if it is small, then he can do it according to his convenience. Then the area of the audit, which are the specialized or complex areas which require extra help and time. And then the assessed risk of material misstatement. If the assessed risk of material misstatement is low, then he can be a little relaxed while reviewing and supervising the work. But if the assessed risk of material misstatement is high, then the auditor needs to be on his toes and review the work thoroughly as and when the need arises. Example, an increase in the assessed risk of material misstatement for a given area of audit ordinarily requires a corresponding increase in the extent and timeliness of direction and supervision of engagement team members and a more detailed review of their work. So, during the audit procedures, if the assessed risk of material misstatement for a given area of the audit ordinarily requires a corresponding increase in the extent and timelines of direction. So, basically, if the the assessed risk of material misstatement in any area increases, then the auditor's responsibility in terms of timeliness and direction and supervision of engagement team members and also a detailed review of work will go up as well. He cannot be relaxed. This thing, he will also have to increase his proactiveness and actions. Okay, please take a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask. Any questions, please ask. Take about a minute more. Carefully go through this. Come on, let me know once you're done. Any questions, please ask. Are we done? Okay, let's proceed. Then the fourth one, the capabilities and competence of the individual team members performing the audit work. So even that is the audit partner or the engagement partner has to decide on this. Example, we may have identified a problem relating to the production process that raised concerns about inventory obsolescence. After obtaining an understanding of the entity's process that raised concerns about inventory obsolescence, which we had identified as a significant class of transactions, we concluded that additional tests of details were required. So basically, the auditor conducted some control tests on some sensitive areas like your production process, and he found the controls to be weak. So based on that, he increased his audit procedures and additional tests and details were required. Therefore, the senior will likely take part along with the team in the discussions with the management about the provision for obsolescence and examine related documentation supporting the provision rather than just reading the memo on file. These procedures should be completed as the work is being performed rather than as and after the fact review. The extent of the senior's involvement requires judgment, taking into consideration the complexity of the area and the experience of the team. So also while making the plan, the senior on the team or the audit engagement partner might have to look at his involvement into the audit, taking into consideration the complexity of the areas and the experience of the team. Okay, so that will also be part of the audit planning process. Please take 2 minutes, go through this. Any question, please ask. Any questions? Please ask. Let me know once you're done, please. Hi Yash, how are you? Yash Gamer, how are you? Nice to see you. Welcome to the session. Okay, any questions? Please ask me. Okay, now let's look at documentation, right? The auditor shall document when the auditor initially when he makes the overall audit strategy, whether it's a risky client, whether it's an okay client, he will document the entire audit strategy along with reasons. Then based on the strategy, the auditor will also document the entire audit plan, that if the client is risky, the substantive procedures performed on the audit will be higher and control checking will be lower. But if the client is not risky, then the control checking will be higher and the substantive checking will be lower. Any significant changes made during the audit engagement to overall audit strategy or the overall audit plan, the reasons for the changes. So like we discussed again and again, audit plan and audit strategy cannot remain rigid. It has to be flexible so that during the course of the audit, if there are any changes that take place there, those changes have to be incorporated in the audit strategy and the audit plan. So if there are any changes that have taken place in the audit engagement, audit strategy or audit plan, the auditor has to document what are those changes that have taken place and what is the reason for such changes. The documentation of the overall audit strategy is a record of the key decisions considered necessary to properly plan the audit and to communicate significant matters to the engagement team. So basically, unless the auditor documents the audit strategy and the basis of arriving there, the audit plan that has been derived on the basis of the audit strategy will help him to communicate significant matters to the engagement team. The selection of the engagement team, the delegation of work to the engagement team will also depend on that. Let's take an example. The auditor may summarize the overall audit strategy in the form of a memorandum that contains key decisions regarding the overall scope, timing and conduct of the audit. Alright, please take a minute, go through this. Any question, please ask me. Any questions, please ask me. Take a minute. Take a minute more, carefully go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Let me know once we are done, please. Are we done? Okay. The documentation of the audit plan is a record of the planned nature, timing and extent of risk assessment procedures and further audit procedures at the assertion level in response to the asserted risks. It is also served as a record of the proper planning of the audit procedures that can be reviewed and approved prior to their performance. The auditor may use standard auditing programs and or audit completion checklists tailored as needed to reflect the particular engagement circumstances. So this is all the benefits of documentation of your audit plan. A record of the significant changes in the overall audit strategy and audit plan and resulting changes to the plan, nature, timing and extent of audit procedures explains why the significant changes are made and the overall strategy and the audit plan finally adopted for the audit. It also reflects the appropriate response to the significant changes occurring during the audit. So basically this whole big paragraph simply means Audit planning is important because it helps to decide the extent, timing, and nature of audit procedures that the audit team is willing to perform or has to perform to get a reasonable assurance about material misstatements not being there in the financial statements of the companies. But if during the course of the audit they do encounter certain situations and events that makes them change the audit plan and the audit strategy, then that event or changes, the reason for the changes should also be documented, and the new audit plan should be appropriately discussed and documented and explained to the audit engagement team while performing their functions. Please take a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask. Any questions, please ask. Any questions? Any questions, anyone? Please ask me. Let me know once you're done. Excuse me. Shall we proceed? Okay. Now, let's look at the following examples. The following things should form part of the auditor's documentation. A summary of the discussions with the entity's key decision makers. Okay, so basically whatever the auditor has discussed with the entity's key decision makers or the top management, he should document that. Documentation of audit committee pre-approval of services were required. So whichever company has an audit committee, so the approval of the audit committee of the services that are expected from the auditors in terms of an engagement letter should be documented. Audit documentation access letters that that the client will not interfere and will provide them all the information that is required for the audit. So those access letters also is required from the clients. Other communications or agreements with management or those charged with governance regarding the scope, the changes in scope of our services. So please remember, initially if the auditors have agreed upon an engagement letter with the client, if the client later wants to increase the scope of the services provided by the auditors, then the auditors will have to ask for a new engagement letter where the scope of their services are changed and maybe the fees for the same will change. Auditors report on the entity's financial statements. After doing the entire audit work, the final auditor's report on the entity's financial statements will also have to be documented. Other reports as specified in the engagement letter, debt covenant or compliance thereof. So based on the engagement letter, that is whatever is the work that the auditor is supposed to perform, or any other reports that the auditor is supposed to provide, that will have to be given to that will have to be documented in the right place. Please take a minute, go through this, and then we proceed. Any questions, please ask. Any questions, please ask me. Take a minute more. Any questions, please ask me. Okay, in case there are no questions, as we've done 2 hours of class continuously, let's take about a 7 minute break, and I will continue again at about 8:39 p.m. Okay, in about 7 minutes from now, we shall resume the class. Take a break, go for a walk, have some water, and I shall do the same, and I shall see you at 8:39. Okay, in exactly 7 minutes from now. Okay. Come on, we are in the middle of a break. Okay, take a break for about 5 more minutes, and then let's come back. Let me give some rest to my throat for the next 5 minutes. Okay, and then we resume the concluding session. Okay, 4 more minutes, then come back. Hmm. 3 more minutes, then come back. Then let's resume the class. Okay, 2 more minutes. Okay, 2 more minutes. Come back. Okay, come back. Just a minute more. Finish your break. Come back. Come back. Come back. Come back. Just a minute left for a break to get over. Come back. Okay, then now let's have a discussion on the audit program. Now it is desirable that in respect of each audit and more particularly for bigger audits, an audit program should be drawn up. Audit program is a list of examination and verification steps to be applied and set out in such a way that their interrelationship of one step to another is clearly shown and designed. Keeping in view the assertions discernible in the statements of accounts produced for audit or on the basis of appraisal of the accounting record. So basically, audit program simply means now you've done the audit strategy, audit planning and everything. So you make an audit program that to each item in the financial statements, how are you going to approach it? So your receivables might be a substantive approach, whereas your rent expense might be a control or travel expense might be a control and this thing. So basically each and every item in your financial statements, what approach you're going to adopt for it, whether it's going to be a substantive approach or whether it's going to be a controls checking approach, will have to be included in the audit program. Definition: an audit program consists of a series of verification procedures to be applied to the financial statements and accounts of a given company for the purpose of obtaining sufficient evidence to enable the auditor to express an informed opinion on such statements. So basically, an audit program simply consists of a series of verification procedures. It could be either substantive or it could be control checking procedures that the auditor wants to apply to the various items of a financial statement. There could be different procedures for P&L items and there could be different procedures for balance sheet items. In other words, an audit program is a detailed plan of applying the audit procedures in a given circumstances with instructions for the appropriate techniques to be adopted for accomplishing the audit objectives. Okay, so basically in order to attain the audit objective, whatever the audit objective is, what are the various techniques and procedures you are going to apply for each item on the financial statements to get appropriate evidence is known as the audit program. Okay, please take a minute or two, go through this. Any question, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Any questions, please ask. Take a minute more, carefully go through this. Any questions? Please ask me. Anyone, any questions? Please ask. Okay, let's proceed. Then, evolving one audit program, not particular for all business. Now, please remember, one size fits all is not applicable in case of audit programs as well. Different entities, different clients have different audit programs. Business vary in nature, size, and composition. Work which is suitable to one business may not be suitable to the others. Efficiency and operation of internal controls and the exact nature of the service to be rendered by the auditor are the other factors that vary from assignment to assignment. On account of such variations, evolving one audit program applicable to all business under all circumstances is not practicable. However, it becomes a necessity to specify in detail the audit program, the nature to work to be done so that no time will be wasted on matters not pertinent to the engagement, and any special matter, any specific situation can be taken care of. So this paragraph simply means no one size fits all is applicable in terms of audit plan, as well as or different business entities have different operation, different controls, different transactions. So for every business entity or business client, you will have to make a different audit plan based on the audit strategy, the audit planning, and then you make the audit program. So one audit program cannot fit to the same to all the clients as such. Okay, that's what this means. Please take a minute, go through this. Any questions? Please ask. Any questions? Please ask me. Take a minute more. Okay. The assistant engaged be encouraged to keep an open mind. To start with, an auditor having regard to the nature, size, and composition of the business and the dependability of the internal control and given scope of work should frame a program which aim at providing for a minimum essential work which may be termed as standard program. As experience is gained by actually carrying out the work, the program may be altered to take care of the situations which were left out originally but are found relevant for a particular concern. Similarly, if any work originally provided for proves beyond doubt to be unnecessary or irrelevant, it may be dropped. The assistant engaged in the job should be encouraged to keep an open mind beyond the program given to him. He should be instructed to note and report significant matters coming to his notice to his seniors or the partners or proprietor of the firm engaged in the audit. So basically what this simply means, various items in the financial statements, that is P&L and balance sheet statements, are given various audit programs, so and those items are even assigned to the audit assistants and other things. So if there is a particular audit program that is made for a particular item, but once the work starts, if such a detailed audit program is not necessary for it, then they can reduce the scope of that. At the same time, if more procedures are necessary, then the scope can be increased. But the audit assistant who is handling that part should be asked to keep an open mind, so that any changes or anything, he can be flexible, and any significant matters that come to his notice, he can report the same to his seniors or partners or proprietor of the firm engaged in doing the audit. Okay, take a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask me. Take your time. Okay, then periodic review of the audit program. There should be a periodic review of the audit program to assess whether the same continues to be adequate for obtaining requisite knowledge and evidence about the transactions. Unless this is done, any change in the business policy of the client may not be adequately known, and consequently, audit work may be carried on the basis of an obsolete program. And for this negligence, the whole audit team may be held negligently conducted, and the auditor may have to face legal consequences. So it's always important to review the audit program from time to time to know if there are any changes in the scope of the audit and in the nature of the business of the entity or the policy, so that the audit program can be suitably modified on a timely basis. In case it is not done, then the whole audit team may be held as negligently conducted and the auditor may have to face legal consequences. Example, if the audit program for the audit of a branch of a financing house drawn up a number of years ago fails to take into consideration that the previous policy of financing of a vehicle has been changed to financing of real estate acquisition, the whole audit conducted thereunder would be entirely misdirected and may even result into nothing more than a farce. The case law is Pacific Acceptance Corporation Limited versus Fawcett and others. Okay, please take a minute, go through this. Any question, please ask. Any questions, please ask. Take a minute more. All right, take 10 more seconds. Okay, the utility of the audit program can be retained and enhanced only by keeping the program as also the client's operations and internal control under periodic review, so that the inadequacies or redundancy of the program may be removed. However, as a basic feature, audit program not only lists the tasks to be carried out but also contains a few relevant instructions like the extent of checking, the sampling plan, so etc. So long as the program is not officially changed by the principal, every assistant deputed on the job should unfallingly carry out the detailed work according to the instructions governing the work. Many persons believe that this brings an element of rigidity in the audit program. This is not true, provided the periodic review is undertaken to keep the program as up to date as possible, and by encouraging the assistants on the job to observe all salient features of the various accounting functions of the client. So this simply means the audit program along with the client's business should be periodically reviewed to incorporate any changes as such, and any change in the audit program should be done by the principal, that is the main person on the audit assignment, and unless and until such a change is done, the audit assistant, every assistant deputed on a job should unfallingly carry out the detailed work according to the instructions governing the work. Okay. So many persons believe that this brings an element of rigidity in the audit program. This is not true, provided the periodic review is undertaken. So please remember, there should be only one person who can make changes into the audit program and not everyone else. Okay. Okay, take a minute. Are we done? Okay. Construction of an audit program. For the purpose of program construction, the following points should be kept in mind. So one should keep in mind the following points when he's planning to prepare a audit program. Stay within the scope and limitation of the assignment. So whatever is your assignment as detailed in your engagement letter, we need to stay within the scope and limitation of the assignment. Determine the evidence reasonably available and identify the best evidence for deriving the necessary satisfaction. So please remember, you need to get a reasonable assurance about items in the financial statements and other things. So you need to see what is the evidence that is available to you and whether it satisfies the necessary action that you require for that particular item. Apply only those steps and procedures which are useful in accomplishing the verification process in the specific situation. So based on the ground, when you're doing the audit, please apply only those steps and procedures which are useful in accomplishing the verification purpose. If there is any particular step that you mentioned in your audit program, but on the ground when you're actually doing the work, that particular step is not applicable, then please do not do it. That will just result in a waste of time and efforts. Consider all possibilities of errors. So when you're doing the work, please remember it's human at the end of the day. So consider all the possibilities of an error being committed and work on it accordingly and check it or double check it as the case may be. Coordinate the procedures to be applied to related items. Okay, now if there is any related items, for example, if there is revenue or sales being checked, then the corresponding item will be sundry debtors in the balance sheet. So you can also cover that area when you are doing it, because if items are sold on credit, then your debtors will be affected in your balance sheet. Okay, so wherever the items are related, you please coordinate the audit procedures and the steps so that both those items or both those things can be covered. All right, please take some time, go through this. Any question, please ask me. Any questions, please ask me. Please take another minute. Please go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Take a minute more. Any questions, please ask me. Go through this carefully. It's important. Are we done? Okay, take about 30 seconds more and then we proceed. Any questions, please ask me. Okay. Audit program designed to provide audit evidence. So please remember, whatever audit program you're making, that should be so designed that you get your appropriate audit evidence to get reasonable assurance about material misstatements not being there in the financial statements. So audit evidence may be defined as the information used by the auditor in arriving at the conclusions on which the auditor's opinion is based. Audit evidence includes both information contained in the accounting records underlying the financial statements and other information. Evidence is the very basis of formulation of opinion, and an audit program is designed to provide for that by prescribing procedures and techniques. What is the best evidence for testing the accuracy of any assertion is a matter of expert knowledge and experience. This is the primary task before the auditor when he draws up the audit program. Transactions are varied in nature and impact. Procedures to be prescribed depend on prior knowledge of what evidence is reasonably available in respect of each transaction. So basically, like again, it comes to that no one size fits all. So an audit program will have to be different for different items appearing in the balance sheet and the profit and loss account. And the basic objective for an auditor is to get reasonable assurance about each item in the reasonable assurance and evidence about each item in the balance sheet. And he has to obtain various procedures. It could be substantive, could be control checking, or could be other alternative procedures to get that satisfaction. Okay, because transactions are varied in nature and impact, procedures to be prescribed depending on prior knowledge of what evidence is reasonably available in respect of each transaction. Okay, please take a minute, go through this. Any question, please ask. Any questions, please ask. Carefully go through this. Take a minute more. Excuse me. Okay, take about 30 seconds more and then we proceed. Any questions, please ask me. It's been quite a lengthy session. If you have any questions, please ask me. I will be happy to answer it for you. We are talking about audit strategy, audit plan, audit program, and then about evidence and documentation as well. So any questions you may have, please ask me. Hmm. Are we done? Okay, let's proceed. Now, let's take an example. Sales are evidenced by. Now, what is the evidence that you will look when you're checking the sales account? First is invoices raised by the client. Whatever your client, the invoices are raised. The price list, whether the invoices raised are as per the price list. The forwarding notes to clients. So once the invoice is raised, there is also forwarding notes sent to the client. And so things are dispatched to you, and so things are dispatched to you. Inventory issue records. Now, obviously, if some sale has been made, that sale will also be reflecting as issues in your inventory. So that can also be checked. Sales manager's advice to the inventory section. So whenever a sale is made, the sales manager gives an advice to the inventory saying sales of 200 items have happened, so please dispatch those items. Acknowledgement of the receipts of goods by the customer. So when the ultimate 200 items reach the customer, they do provide a acknowledgement. So that can also be used as an evidence. Collection of money against sales by the client. So obviously, if a sales has happened, it can happen either on cash basis or on credit basis. So if it has happened on cash basis, the cash received from the client, that is also an evidence. And if it's on a credit basis, whenever the money has received from the client after a month, 2 months, 3 months, that should be evidence in the bank statement as the sales has happened. In most of the assertions, much of the evidence can be drawn, and each one should be considered and weighed to ascertain its weight to prove or disprove the assertion. In this process, an auditor would be in a position to identify the evidence that brings the highest satisfaction to him about the appropriateness or otherwise of the assertion. So, when we have discussed about all these being the sales evidences, the auditor has to decide in the given situation when he is in the middle of the audit which particular evidence is available to him and how, to what extent it satisfies or gives him satisfaction about the sales. That is the auditor when he is in action in the middle, he needs to decide on that. But there are various evidences for your sales. Okay, please take a minute, go through this. Any question, please ask. Any questions, please ask me. Take a minute. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask me. Take a minute more. Let me know once you're done, please. Okay. Then an auditor picks up evidence from a variety of fields, and it is generally of the following broad types. Now, what are the kind of evidence and documentary evidence that he picks up? One is documentary examination, the bills, the bank statement, physical examination, whether any particular item, that means your fixed assets or your inventory, is physically present or not. Statements and explanations of management officials and employees. Statements and explanation of third parties, that could be vendors or customers. Arithmetical calculations by the auditor. There could be some arithmetical errors that could happen in many cases, so the auditor also checks the arithmetical calculations. State of internal controls and internal checks. What are the internal controls and accounting systems that are prevailing in the client's business? So the auditor checks those as well, the state of internal controls and internal checks. The interrelationship of the various accounting data, that means sales and debtors. Sales will also affect sundry debtors. So he checks that interrelationship, and at the same time he can cover two areas. The minutes of meetings of board of directors or the minutes of AGM. subsequent action by the client, and the others. So basically, these are all the various options from which the auditor can obtain information or evidence. So it's left up to him, whichever avenue is suitable and the information is available, he will take the information from there. Please take a minute or two, go through this. Any questions, please ask. Take a minute more. Any questions, please ask me. Are we done? Any questions, please ask me. Okay, let's proceed. Let's take an example. For example, for cash in hand, the best evidence is count. So if the client says as on March 31st, 2021, the cash in hand is about 25,000 rupees. So the best evidence is to actually do a physical count. On 31st March, the auditor or his team member should reach the client's office and actually take a physical count of the cash in hand. For investment pledged with the bank, the banker's certificate. So if there is any investment of the company that is pledged with the bank for the purpose of taking a loan, the best evidence is the banker's certificate, because the banker's certificate will mention what has been pledged with the bank. For verifying assertions about book debts, the client's ledger invoices, debit notes, credit notes, monthly account statements sent to the customers are all evidence. Some of these are corroborative, other being complementary. In addition, balance confirmation procedures is often resorted to obtain greater satisfaction about the reliability of the assertion. So if there are any sundry debtors, how do we check them? We check the sundry debtors with the subsequent collections, whether when they are appearing in the bank statement, and also confirmations from the sundry debtors. We send confirmations to them saying that as on 31st March, so and so amount is due from you to the company. Please confirm it, and this is a part of the procedure. The auditor, however, has to place appropriate weight on each piece of evidence and accordingly should prescribe the priority of verification. It is true that in all cases, one procedure may not bring the highest satisfaction, and it may be dangerous for the auditor to ignore any evidence that is available. By the word available, we do not mean that the evidence available with the client is the only available evidence. The auditor should also know what normally should be available in the context of the transaction, having regard to the circumstances and usage. Okay, so it all depends on who is on the ground doing the work. The auditor is on the ground doing the work, so he has various options or avenues through which he can get his evidence. So he needs to decide which evidence is important and which evidence is not, and take the appropriate evidence to get a satisfaction about the items of the financial statements. Please take 2 minutes, go through this. Any question, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Okay, any questions? Please ask. Come on, take another minute. It's an important slide. Okay, any questions? Please ask. Take a minute more. Any questions? Please ask. Okay, let's proceed. Now, developing the audit program. Now, what are the steps in developing an audit program? First one is a written audit program. The auditor should prepare a written audit program setting forth the procedures that are needed to implement the audit plan. So basically, all the items of the financial statement should be listed down, and against each of them, he should mention the audit program. This can be done in Microsoft Excel as well. Then, the audit objective and instructions to assistants. And based on the audit program, you will delegate the work to the audit assistants and also give them the instructions as to what they need to do and to the extent on which they need to do things. The program may also contain audit objectives for each area and should have sufficient details to serve as a set of instructions to the audit assistants involved in the audit and as a means to control the proper execution of the work. So basically, your audit instructions to the assistant should be as clear as possible so that there is no ambiguity and they can perform their job to the highest level. Reliance on internal controls. Again, we need to check the accounting system and the internal controls present in the client's business. In preparing the audit program, the auditor having an understanding of the accounting system and related internal controls may wish to rely on certain internal controls in determining the nature, timing and extent of the required auditing procedures. The auditor may conclude that relying on certain internal controls is an effective and efficient way to conduct his audit. However, the auditor may decide not to rely on internal controls when there are other more efficient ways of obtaining sufficient appropriate evidence. The auditor should also consider the timing of the procedures, the coordination of any assistance expected from the client, the availability of the assistants and the movement of other auditors or experts. So, see again, it all comes down if the auditor has to check the internal controls of the client as part of his internal risk assessment, and if the internal controls of the client are good and working, then the amount of substantive checking that the auditor needs to do will reduce, and vice versa. If the internal controls are weak, then the amount of substantive checking will go up. So on the field, as and when the auditor encounters certain situations, he needs to change his audit program and communicate the same to the audit assistants on a timely and proper manner. Alright, so that's what this whole big paragraph means. Please take about a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Come on, take another minute. Go through it carefully. Okay, any questions? Please ask me. Take about a minute more. Are we done? Okay. The timing of performance of audit procedures. The auditor normally has the flexibility in deciding when to perform audit procedures. However, in some cases, the auditor may have no discretion as to timing, for example, when observing the taking of inventories by the client personnel or verifying the securities and cash balances at year end. So, normally, the auditor has the freedom to decide the timing of the performance of audit procedures, but certain items like your cash balance as on March 31st, 2021, the inventory balance as on March 31, 2021, year end closing, he does not have an option, but those procedures of physical count have to be done on that day itself. Okay, so other than that, he has the freedom to decide when he wants to conduct his audit procedures. Audit planning. The audit planning ideally commences at the conclusion of the previous year's audit, and along with the related program, it should be reconsidered for modifications as the audit progresses. Such consideration is based on the auditor's review of the internal control, his preliminary evaluation thereof, and the results of his compliance and substantive procedures. So, like we read, that the planning for the next year's audit starts from the end of the previous year's audit itself and goes on till the end of the next audit, and so on. The cycle goes on and on and on. Please take a minute, go through this. Any question, please ask. Any questions, please ask. Take a minute. Are we done? Let me know once we are done, please. Any questions, please ask me. Okay, let's proceed. What are the advantages and disadvantages of an audit program? The advantages of an audit program are: A, it provides the assistant carrying out the audit with total and clear set of instructions of the work generally to be done. So, an audit program basically for each item, and the delegation of work is done to the audit assistant. So, the audit assistant knows exactly what he needs to do with a clear set of instructions of the work generally to be done. There is no ambiguity or there is no doubt in what he is trying to do. So, that's one advantage. It is essential, particularly for major audits, to provide total perspective of the work to be performed. So, when the client is big or the audit assignment is pretty big, then it becomes important to make an audit program for the various items in the financial statements. Selection of assistants for the jobs on the basis of capability becomes easier when the work is rationally planned, defined, and segregated. So, based on the audit strategy, audit plan, when you decide on your team members, whether you want highly experienced team members or whether freshers would also do, then selection of the assistant for the jobs on the basis of capability becomes easier when the work is rationally planned, defined, and segregated. Without a team, without a written and predetermined program, the work is necessarily to be carried out on the basis of some mental plan. In such a situation, there is always a danger of ignoring or overlooking certain books and records. Under a properly framed program, such danger is significantly less, and the auditor can proceed systematically. So please remember, when an audit assignment is really complex, and if you do not have a particular audit plan and program in place, where for each item of the balance sheet and profit and loss account, then there is a very high chance that during the course of the audit you might not remember certain things and it might just slip out of your attention, and once it slips out of your attention, you might have not gathered evidence about that item. So it's very important that you systematically make an audit program covering each item in the financial statements. The assistants, by putting their signature on the program, accept the responsibility for the work carried out by them individually, and if necessary, the work done may be traced back to the assistant. So there is also a fixing of responsibility and accountability that happens in audit program. If an assistant has been assigned a particular area, at the end of the audit work, he has to sign off against that, so that tomorrow, if it becomes his responsibility for the work carried out, and if necessary, the work done may be traced back to the assistant. So it's always a fixing of accountability and responsibility which is also there. Please take a minute, go through this slide. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Please take a minute more, carefully go through this. Any questions you may have, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Take a minute more. Let me know once you're done, please. Are we done? Okay, 10 more seconds and then we proceed. Let me know once you're done, please. Okay, then the next advantage, the principal can control the progress of the various audits in hand by examination of the audit programs initiated by the assistants deputed to the jobs for completion of work. Please remember the audit, the principal or the auditor in charge of the audit may have other assignments in mind as well, in hand as well. So it's very easy, by having an audit program, it becomes very easy for him to track the progress of the various audits on hand by establishing an audit program and fixing up the accountability and responsibility of the assistants for completion of the work. It serves as a guide for audits to be carried out in succeeding years. So audit programs will help in the next year as to this particular item was handled this way in this year. So next year also, for most probably, it will be handled in the same way and same procedures can be set up until and unless there is some major changes. A properly drawn up audit program serves as evidence in the event of any charge of negligence being brought against the auditor. It may be of considerable value in establishing that he exercised reasonable skill and care that was expected of professional auditor. So basically it is an evidence as well. It protects the auditor tomorrow of any accusation of negligence or carelessness. If he has carried out his audit in a proper manner according to a strategy, plan and audit program, then he can protect himself if there are any accusations like this. So the audit program also carries evidence value. Some disadvantages are also there of audit programs, which we shall discuss now, but most of these can be removed by the following concrete steps. The disadvantages are, the work may become mechanical and particular parts of the program may be carried out without any understanding of the object of such parts in the whole audit scheme. So what happens sometimes when there is an audit program for each item in the financial statements like balance sheet, P&L, and against each item it is mentioned that what are the procedures that will be mentioned, that will be carried out for each item. Then what happens in an audit program is whoever is handling it, it becomes more of a very mechanical process through which at some times the person may carry out these steps and procedures without really understanding the meaning of the same. So that does not serve the purpose. When the whole procedure becomes very mechanical, very robotic, then the whole purpose of checking and judgment and all that fails. So that is one disadvantage of a audit program. Okay, then what is the next disadvantage? Where is this? The program often tends to become rigid and inflexible following set grooves. The businesses may change in operations of conduct, but the old program may still be carried on. Changes in staff or internal controls may render precaution necessary at points different from those originally decided upon. So like we discussed earlier, audit programs of 1 year may be carried over to the next year as well. So to some extent, there might become rigidity or inflexibility in the next year's procedures. Okay, last year it was done this way, this year also it will be done this way. So there is no scope for innovation and creativity to be used. Okay, so in that case, but the old program may still be carried on. The changes in staff or internal control may render precaution necessary at points different from those originally picked up. So last year when you did the internal control check or the accounting system check, the staff and the controls might have been different, but this year they would have become different. So that part to some extent is not taken into consideration when the audit program of the last year is being carried forward to the next year. Okay, please take about a minute, go through this. Any question, please ask. Any questions, please ask me. Take about a minute more. Carefully go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Take about a minute more, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Are we done? Okay, continuing with the disadvantage. The third disadvantage is inefficient assistance may take shelter behind the program, that is defend deficiencies in their work on the ground that no instruction in the matter was contained therein. So if any assistant is inefficient in his work or is lazy, then he can always take shelter behind the program that last year we did this year we are doing the same thing, no additional information or steps were provided to me, so I did the same thing. At that time, the principal will not even have any explanation. Because what we are doing is a little bit of sense of complacency sets in. That if last year there was this audit program for cash, then even this year the same audit program for cash should be followed. A hard and fast rule. Audit program may kill the initiative of efficient and enterprising assistant. So now, if any particular audit program is very hard and fast, then it can kill the initiative of proactive and efficient enterprise assistants who might want to use other procedures for obtaining satisfaction about the items in the financial statement. So that is also a disadvantage. First is if the assistants become lazy, and second if the assistants are super efficient. In both the cases, it becomes a roadblock. All these disadvantages may be eliminated by imaginative supervision of the work carried on by the assistants. The auditor must have a receptive attitude as regards the assistants. The assistant should be encouraged to observe matters objectively and bring significant matters to the notice of supervisor principal. So what happens is, it all boils down to the style of supervision. The principal or the supervisor should give them freedom for innovation, and also tell them that if you notice anything unusual, you need to bring it to our notice as fast as possible. Please take a minute, go through this, and then we proceed. Any question, please ask me. Any questions, please ask me. Okay, if there are no questions, we will be ending this session right with this slide. Okay, just give me a second. Thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. Come, let's crack CA exams with Unacademy, India's largest online learning platform that gives you a world of courses, resources, content, live and recorded sessions to help you in your preparation for the CA Foundation and Intermediate examinations by providing top educators, quality content, and overall a great learning experience. Alright, and please do not forget to use the code Prathik to get an instant discount of 10% on the listed price of the Plus courses. Alright, so thank you so much for being a wonderful audience. It was a great pleasure to take this session for all of you. And I will see you all tomorrow with the continuation. Thank you so much. Good night and take care of yourself.